Hey folks, it's me again. I'm here to show you guys how to configure a NGINX server as a proxy server on Windows. And the goal here is to have several applications running on different ports, for example, on the same computer. And based on the name that you're calling, NGINX is going to route you to the correct application. No need to put a port. You can give it whatever name you want, so it's easier to develop applications this way, and it's also a solution so we don't have to put ports anymore on our applications. So let me show you guys real quick what I have here. What I have configured is this is a small. I have two examples, right? So this is a small web application. It will return a HTML page. In this case, it's just returning a piece of HTML. But imagine this is a web application, right? So we have some pages, etc. This is running on port 5500. So this is the port for the web application. So I have a website. Imagine that I have a website running here. The second one is an API. So I have an API. It has an endpoint called API hello, which is going to return a JSON, small payload with a message and saying hello world. This application, however, is running on 8080. It's a different port, right? So let's test both applications to see if everything is working fine. So I'm going to run the first application. Okay, starting, and is listening on port 8080. So if I go, let's go here. If I go to localhost 8080, nothing is going to appear because I cannot get the root of the API. There's nothing on this address. But if I put API and hello, which is exactly the path that I gave, then I get a message, a payload, a JSON payload message, hello world. Just to confirm that we do have the correct, let's go to network, just to confirm that we have the correct payload. Here it is. So the response, yeah, perfect. You see, it is a JSON message, okay? So this is an API. Let's try to do that with the web application. So let's start the web application. It's going to start in a different port, 5500. Yeah, server listening. Okay, so it started. Let's go to localhost 5500. So this now is a web application. So if I just do this, hello world. So everything works fine. So imagine that now I have these two examples working and I want to send to our server. Every time we do that, obviously I'm going to send these applications, right, to the server. We are going to run this on the server. And now what happens, and it doesn't matter if it is in Node, in C#, in Delphi, whatever the language you're building your application, if it uses ports, you're going to have the same problem. Because now when I transfer this application into the server, the problem is I am bound to use this port. And this can cause a series of problems. Not only CORS, which if you take a look at the web application example, I don't need to use CORS because whatever, this is going to run on port 80 anyway. This is a web application. But in the case of the API, this is very, very important. And in here, I am using CORS. So I have to configure CORS for it to, receive. And in any case, this is always a good idea when you're dealing with APIs because the names are going to be different, meaning you may be running your API on a different domain, and that's what's that's the thing that CORS resolves for you. So in any case, I'm using cores here, but not only web application. It doesn't matter. What matter is the ports are different, correct? So if you are running the API, you're running on this port. If you're running the web application, you're running on this port. Imagine if I have a third application, a third chat server, for example, which is running on yet a different port, port 9090 or something like that, whatever the port is. The problem is I am always going to be typing the domain, in this case localhost, and the port, correct? I don't want to do that. This is not for development. This could be good and is easy to test, but for production, this is not the way we should be doing things. So I'm going to show you guys a solution for that. Solution for that is to use NGINX. Or okay, since we are using Windows and not Linux, I would be using NGINX anyway because it's easier, but you could use IIS. But the problem with IIS is it is very difficult to configure, especially as a reverse proxy, which is exactly what we're going to do with NGINX. With NGINX, it's super easy. You just type in the configuration, you reload the configuration on NGINX itself, everything works. On IIS is not that easy. You need to install a few plugins. It was not made to do that. IIS is just a web server. That's the problem with IIS. And NGINX is just an alternative to IIS. And you can install on the server if you want. But first of all, let's download NGINX. So let me just search for it. I am going to download it, not this first link, nginx.com. This is not it. This is the correct link, nginx.org. This is the correct one. The first one is a private company taking advantage of NGINX. This is NGINX, and NGINX is a open source proxy and web server, so you're going to be better downloaded from here. So let's see, I want the mainline version for Windows, and this is the latest, I guess. So let's download this. It's a zip file, so you do not need to install anything, just do this. Okay, and now you can run it. You can configure it to run as a service if you want later, but in this case I am just going to run it. Here is the configuration files. We are going to see how to edit them, but first of all, let me run NGINX the way it is. If I go just to localhost, no port, this is port 80, right? Since I'm not running IIS, I'm not running any web server, I don't have anything on port 80, so this is probably going to fail. It's trying to, yeah, there's no website running on port 80. If I go now and run NGINX, okay, NGINX is running. If I go here now, yeah, welcome to NGINX. So I know NGINX is now running and is serving a small web page. So just like Apache, just like IIS, if you go to localhost, you're going to see some page just to let you know that the web server is working. So first step is done. You have NGINX working. Now, I don't want to imagine that you have a few domains, right? You want to deal, you have to deal with domains. So let's call my domain, I don't know, easysystems.local. Easysystems is the name of my company. I want to put here easysystems.local. In Windows, what we can do, this is not needed, by the way, this is optional. So I'm just going to show why I'm doing that, because if I do that right now, easysystems.local, this name doesn't exist, right? So it's going to try to find this name and it's not going to find anything, right? No domains with that name. In Windows, you can change a file called hosts. It's on Windows System 32, then drivers, etc. Here you have your hosts file. So let's edit. You can use Notepad or Notepad++, whatever text editor you have. So this is very simple. It just says that name localhost is linked to this address, right? So this is very, very simple to understand. If I put here the same thing, I'm going to copy these two, right? And put easysystems.local for both. So I'm going to copy the name, I'm going to put it here. Save. It needs to be on admin mode. All right, save, perfect. And now if I do this, perfect. It goes to my local host. So now I have a name to work with, right? So let's call this my domain. The only purpose that I did all of this, I added the file to have this name here, is so we can have more or less a relationship of what we need to do on the server in what I'm doing here on my machine. So let's call this my domain, okay? So easysystems.local, it could be easysystem.net, .com, .org, .ie, or whatever. This is my domain. So now I want to create a few subdomains, correct? How do we do that? I'm going to edit the file again. And you would be doing that on your domain host, right? So let's create a few names. Let's create, for example, API.easysystems and apptest.easysystems. Okay, all these names are pointing to the same server, correct? I'm going to save, it's going to complain. I'm going to save it again. Perfect. So if now this is pointing to my server, now all the names are pointing to the same place, right? So API is systems local. This is pointing to the same place. And app test, right? So let's try it on a new tab in app test systems.local, and perfect. All of those names are pointing to the same server. How can I reroute some of these names to the correct applications? Let's try to do that. So I want the API to point to my API, and I want this name to point to my web application, correct? So let's do that. How do we do that using NGINX? So you need to edit some files on NGINX. I'm going to show you the best way to do it, so obviously, which is to create, you can edit directly the NGINX config files, but the best way to do that, and I'm going to show you what I mean, If you added the NGINX config file, let's open here, you can see that we have already an HTTP server configured here. So this server is pointing to a page that is located where? Let me try to find it. So this page, so server name localhost is listening on port 80. We know that because this appears, right? This is a this is my web server, and it's trying to find this file. The root is HTML. So we have here under NGINX a folder called HTML, and in here we have the index.html, which if I open, you can see that it is this exact page that we are seeing here. So perfect. We figure out how this works. Okay. So if I want to edit this file, what I can do is I can add directly here on this file the configuration that I want. Let's try to do that because it's the easiest way to configure NGINX, and then I'm going to show you how to create a new file, and from there you have a different additional configuration that you can load separately. Let's first of all add this file, okay? So I'm going to leave this the way it is. I don't want to change anything because if I just type easy systems.local, and let's do that on a new tab, easy systems.local, I still want to see the local NGINX page, right? I don't want this to change. But if I type app test, I want it to show me another page, and if I type API, I want it to show me another page or something else. So let's do that. So is this the local I'm not going to change, which is this server here. Okay. So let's do another virtual host. You can do like this, right? So let's write a new host. So first of all, let's switch some comments, right? So this is going to be my easy systems.local. This is going to be my API. Better yet, this is going to be my app test because this is easy to configure, and I'm going to show you. Well, both are the same thing actually, so it doesn't matter. Let's start with the API then. Okay, so this is just a comment. What you have to write now is server, because you're starting a new server section here on this file, and you have to contain it inside the curly braces. Okay. Now you tell in which port this is going to listen. I want this to listen on port 80, because then I can just do this, right? I don't need to define the port. And since this is a web application, I want it to listen on port 80. It could be 80, it could be 443. You can put 443 here if you want. In fact, if you take a look at the configuration for the other routes that you have here, one of them is 443 SSL, right? For that, you need to define and specify the certificate file and key. So that's why I'm not doing this here right now. But later I'm going to show you how to do that. Well, the configuration is very simple. You just need to do this really. And then you put whatever it is that you need for the server to listen to on port 443, and that's it. There's nothing else you need to do. So with that done, let's continue. You can see that it is the same thing that is being done here. Now what you have to do is to give this server a name. So server name, and now I will give the name that I want. For example, for this API, it's this name here. I'm going to copy this name, and I'm going to do this without the HTTP. I don't need, I just need the name. So this is the name that I want it to route for me, to reroute for me. So now I need to give it a location. So the location, you have two types of location, right? You have the location like this, where you define where the files are, and then you define an index file for your web applications. Or you can configure like this. You have an example right here. Let me try to find it. A proxy pass. So what this does is every time you type this name that you're configuring, it is going to proxy you into another port or into another application, or in fact into another address entirely. If you have your application running on a different server on your network, you can do that. This is just proxy. So this is exactly what I want to do. So let's do location. The location is always going to be the root, right? And again, you define inside the curly braces. And what I want to do here is a proxy pass into HTTP localhost port 8080, right? So I want to route this name into this address. This is all I have to do, right? I can finish here, can save it, and normally I have to restart NGINX. Let's see if it does. Well, let me, first of all, the application must be running. It is running, right? This is my API, correct? So with the application running, I think I need to restart NGINX, but let's see. Yes, I do need to restart NGINX. So let's do that. Let's restart NGINX. Let me go here. You can restart it by in the command line, but since we started double-clicking it, I'm just going to where is it? Finish. This is it. Okay, and now I'm going to run it again. Okay, so by running it again, it's going to reload the configuration files, right? Let me see. You have to finish every line with this, or else it's going to fail. And that's why I don't like to double click the thing. I like to run it through the console. So NGINX, let's run it. It is running, correct? Let's see. Yeah, it is. Let's try this one. Perfect. It is routing to our application. So if I put here /API hello, there you go. So now we have a subdomain pointing to our API. I don't need to put the port. Actually, this is running on port 80. Let's see. So if I do open the console now, if I go to network and refresh, and let's see the request. So the request is, let me do like this. It's easy to see. It's easier to see. Okay, so you can see here the remote address is 127.0.0.1 port 80. There you go. This is exactly what we want, right? So it's calling HTTP API easysystems.local API hello and is routing us to the correct address. Well, this is actually the address that we are requesting to, right? Internally, what NGINX is doing is proxying our call into the correct application, into the correct port. Whatever application is there listening on that port is going to respond. And here it is the result. Now let's do the same for our app test. So let's go back to the file. Let's create a new server. Okay. It is going to listen on port 80 as well, right? Because we don't need SSL here. So the server name is going to be apptest.easysystems.local. And the location for the root of this name. So if I just type the name, it's going to make a proxy pass for me into localhost 5500. This is the port that my other application, my example website, is listening, right? So let's try to do that. And this time I don't forget this. Let's save the file. Let's stop NGINX if I can. I don't think I can. It's not stopping. It's very resilient. Let me do like this, or if I close the window, maybe. Let's try that. Let me check if this is working. It is. Wow. Okay. Let's close NGINX one more time. There you go. So if I now click on NGINX, it should appear here. Let's see what it says. Could not build server name. You should increase server names hash bucket size 332. What is this? So this should be here. Okay. There are a few. Actually, there are a few other. You can see that there are a few other configurations here. You guys can take a look at the documentation. Everything is bound to be on the documentation, obviously. You can check the documentation and see how this actually works, right? And there are a few neat things that you can do with NGINX. Let's see if it's working now. Oh yeah, it seems to be. I don't care. As long as it's working. So now we have the API. Let's check if the API still works. It does. Let's check the application. Hello world. Perfect. So now you have two applications running on different ports, but both are pointing to the same server on different subdomains. Okay, that's it. Actually, I hope you guys learned something. It's good that these things happen because this is new for me. For example, this here, I never saw this problem happening on Linux. Maybe this is just a Windows thing. I'm not sure, but in any case, there is with a simple file and simple configuration like this, you can set up a server. Oh, by the way, let me just follow protocol and put app.easysystems.local, just to indicate that this piece of configuration is for the API, this piece of configuration is for the app, and actually is app test. That's it. Sorry, just a moment. I forgot to tell you guys how to do this, all of this, the best way. I told you guys in the beginning of the video that I was going to show you the best way to do it. I just showed you guys the crappy way. It's real quick. I just forgot. I had to. When I was editing the video, I realized that I missed that part. So yeah, let's go back real quick. When you're editing the configuration file for NGINX directly, obviously things are going to work. You just saw in the video that it works, but it's not the best way. The best way is to create a folder called sites available, which is the default name that NGINX gives this folder when you're installing it as a service, at least on Linux. This is the name of the folder, and inside this folder you put all your applications, all the configuration for your applications. I created a file called easysystems.local, which is the same name as the domain, and inside this file I have this exact same configuration that we created on the conf file itself, on the NGINX config file itself. So I just cut and paste that piece into this file, okay? Why do we do that? Because if you have several domains and subdomains, it's easier to find the configurations if they are in separate files. Simple as that. So this is all there is. You just cut and paste, you put on a different file, save the file. I don't need this to see this file anymore. And in here, what we are going to do is, instead of obviously having it here, in the end of this file, I'm going to put include sites available easysystems.local, and you can include every single file that you have inside sites available. In fact, in Linux, you can do something like this, right? An asterisk here. Let me put like this, it'll be easy to see. So sites available asterisk, it includes every file that you have here. For some reason on Windows that doesn't work, so it doesn't matter. You can define, you can put includes all over, right? And if you have more than one domain, just type in sites available and the file that you created for your domain. So that's it. Now after saving this, and this is the file, it should work. So let's try to run NGINX one more time. So let's go NGINX. Seems to be working. So let's try the application one more time. So that's fine. And the API, it seems to be working. And our local website, since we didn't change anything, should be working fine. So this is the best practice, let's call it, the best way to configure NGINX. Okay, let's get back to the final piece of the video. This is how you configure NGINX to proxy some names into some applications, so we don't need to use ports anymore. As you guys saw, this is all configurable in Windows. I'm not sure if NGINX can run in parallel with IIS. I assume it can, because you can just turn off whatever is on actual port 80 for NGINX, that default website of NGINX, so it doesn't collide with IIS. And then you can configure whatever you want as a subdomain and point to the same server, have applications running on different ports, and you can proxy pass those names into the correct names for those applications on the local host. By the way, you can do also, you can run the applications without having any concern about the port 443. You can create your application solely listening on port 80, or better, let me put this better in a better way. You can create your application without having to concern yourself with the certificate. You don't need to create your application with the certificate, because you can proxy, NGINX can proxy all your calls from from the caller or from the browser or whatever is calling in HTTPS into an application that is listening on protocol HTTP only. And it uses the certificate with that configuration that you guys saw to make the responses that are coming from the application secure, as if they were running under the same protocol HTTPS. This is not that difficult to configure, although I have done that only on Linux. It should be the same thing to configure that for Windows. All you need to is the path for the certificate and the certificate key. We are going to configure the file, and we can test some of the applications. We could also test this right now on the server, create a few subdomains that we think it's intelligent, put the names on a NGINX server, run it, and see if everything works the same. I am pretty certain that it will work for us, and it's a more clean way to write our applications, to put out our names for our clients, and it makes it easier for us to be 100% sure that we are not using a port that might be blocked on the client's firewall, because they're all going to be using 80 or 443. Majority is 443 anyway. That's it. That's what I have for today. I hope you guys liked it. If you did, let me know, and I'll create some more videos like this. See you guys later. Bye.